Welcome to the Working CEO podcast, where we share real advice for busy business leaders. No business school BS, no sugarcoating, just straight talk about how to get work done. Most entrepreneurs start their businesses because they love something: cooking, building houses, making money, but they don't love the HR overhead that comes with it. Our next guest helped start a business to take on the HR headache for other business owners. He's either an angel or a glutton for punishment, maybe both. Meet Chairman and CEO of CEO HR Incorporated, Darrin Fedder, who is the visionary behind the company. Hi, everyone. I'm your co-host, Susanna Song, VP of Marcom at Highwire Networks. And I have with me the working CEO, Mark Porter, CEO of Highwire Networks. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Susanna. How you doing?
Good. And welcome, Darrin, to our show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Darrin.
Before I hand things over to Mark, I would also like to highlight a few things about your past. Before CEO HR started, you were the president and partner of the company Professional Employee Management, which you built from 3 internal employees and 4 clients to becoming one of the most successful PEOs in the history of the industry. PEM was sold in 1997 to the Wackenhut Corporation, which is a New York Stock Exchange listed Fortune 500 firm. And after the sale of PEM, you've served as a board member and private equity investor in various startups, as well as established companies. And you also developed commercial properties in multiple states, which you still manage. So quite a resume there.
Darrin's a man of many talents. So Darrin, as we before we jump in too far, I'd like to ask a simple question that to help explain for our audience. Is I'm very familiar with the concept of a PEO, as it's something, frankly, we've done. I think for most of the time that most of the 22 years I've been involved in Highwire, we've outsourced HR and some of our management tasks associated with it. So how would you define for the layperson or for somebody who's just getting started in business or struggling to get to the next level in their business, how would you describe a PEO and what you guys do for them?
Well, we're an HR outsourced co-employment partner with our clients. Okay, so when you're starting a new company, it's all about focusing on winning sales and your core competency. And so the trick to growing faster and being successful as an entrepreneur is to outsource non-core functions, just like people outsource, the security functions and tech functions to Highwire. Our specialty is payroll, human resources, insurance administration, benefits administration, and literally there's buying powers with economies of scale. Okay, so you need to outsource those functions. And here's a perfect example I can give. I was on the phone yesterday with a prospect that is a small nonprofit that was like, we just do payroll in-house. We kind of manage, our bookkeeper knows everything. We really don't need a lot of expertise. And I asked him one simple question. Did you actually file for COVID sick credits? And they go, what are those? And I go, that's why you need specialized expertise. It ended up there was $16,000 in COVID sick credits they could have filed for and got. And as a nonprofit, very critical to them. And I go, so there's something. We've done $2 billion in payroll in our lifetime. So as I like to tell people, we've forgotten more about HR, payroll, insurance issues that most business owners, just like I don't understand everything about technology and the things you do, Mark. It's literally about outsourcing your non-core competencies to a PEO. And a PEO is a professional employer organization that literally enters into a co-employment relationship with its clients to where the employees are shared between the client, and they're called the worksite employees, and we are what's called the back office paper employer. And we aggregate those employees together for buying power on insurance products, but also for technology. And it's really economies of scale.
Well, I think, for us, again, I mean, we've been doing it for most of my career because it was a little bit like hitting the easy button at first. And then over time, understanding the value of what a good PEO brings and understanding, in our case, when we when we made our acquisition last year in June and brought over that team to this concept. Once we got through the sort of change management process, which was a little bit like the velvet hammer, as I like to call it. Once we got through that and people understood, not only did we get better service and get better value for our employees, I believe we saved something like $200,000 to $300,000 a year on just the one entity that was using another national brand and not even getting the full gamut of services. On top of it, I know that our back office folks our back office team in the finance will tell you that it's easier and smoother. And for us, so now as we sit here with 300 or so employees, to be able to offer them the same level of service as a Fortune 1000, Fortune 500 type company, and manage our benefits costs, which are second only to our payroll cost in terms of annual expenses, to be able to manage it and get those scale items is really critical for us. So
and specialized HR expertise help. You're in multiple states. There is
very important.
Comes up. Our fastest growing clients are clients that are in multiple states, and they could have from 10 employees up to 1,000 employees, but they may have 3 people in New York, 5 people in Texas, 8 in Arizona, 10 in Florida, and trying to manage the compliance of that also. As even a larger employer that you have, that Highwire has resources to be able to hire additional HR people, that skill set and that niche skill set, it is far better to outsource that function. And our value proposition, the reason after building that national PEO and selling it the first time, coming back in, was the companies got even bigger, the industry matured even more. But what we noticed from talking to previous customers, now doing business with the large publicly traded entities, they're just not getting the same level of service and paying far more for the service. So that was really a unique value proposition why we opened back up.
So let's talk about that a little bit. And this is really where really the crux of what we hope to accomplish with this podcast is to kind of help aspiring entrepreneurs, existing entrepreneurs with practical advice, because there's a million books out there that are great in the theoretical realm, but at the end of the day, you got to get shit done. Right. I mean, that's just really what it's about. So, and you've done that now a couple of times, and you've really sort of built to scale twice and had a successful exit along the way and come back to do it again. So let's talk a little bit about that first time. I know a little bit about your story. Why don't you share it with the rest of the team about, how you got started in this industry, how you scaled the first business, and why did it work?
I went to school for broadcasting and communications. It brought me down to Sarasota, Florida. The media company I worked for ran into financial problems. I was in the late 80s. They were tied to a lot of real estate deals. And I found myself laid off just like everybody else at that broadcasting company all of a sudden. Coming from the Midwest, I'm literally 23 years old going, I'm not going back to school. And I meet my future business partner who had this tiny little payroll HR outsourcing company that was called a PEO. And this was back in 1989 when nobody was outsourcing payroll. ADP existed, and a couple of the national companies were gaining some scale, but nobody definitely was doing co-employment or outsourcing payroll or HR on any kind of large scale. So I started as a salesperson for that company. There was just a handful of employees at that company. I mean, just 3 or 4 of us, and started by making cold calls. Right? We had no sales technology. We didn't even have computers. You're talking 1989. There was no way to track things. And I had always remembered the phrase from Thomas Edison that opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like hard work. Well, I made 100 cold calls a day. That was my goal. I moved to Sarasota. I didn't know anybody. I couldn't call on family members or prior contacts. So I just pounded the streets, and I'd come back to our little office that our whole office was not much bigger than my office right here. and lay out all my 100 calls and go, every day, I'm not ending the day until I talk to one person who wants to talk to me about this concept. And over the next year, and listen, part of it is timing, part of it is luck, right place, right time. Our industry just opening up as a PEO and starting to take the benefits and the HR tasks. And this was back when maybe there was only 500 HR rules to follow. Now there's 5,000, right? That just exponentially got worse. But we won numerous clients back those first years in 89, 90, and we just continued to scale up. I would hire, as soon as we started making more money, would hire more salespeople. We'd open more offices, and the industry was going about 35, 40% a year. We were growing 50 or 60% a year. And I was able to buy into the company. And my business partner, who is my business partner again today, Celeste, who started that company with 3 other women and literally bought the last woman out for like $6,000 or $9,000 because they just weren't making enough money to be able to continue. I mean, they had to pay their bills. A few years later, we, have 250 employees, 200 employees, and sell the company to a Fortune 500 international conglomerate. And today that company is still one of the biggest companies. And it literally, honestly, it was a great partnership. So I know a lot of people don't do very well in business partnerships, but if they have complementary skill sets, there's a lot of administrative things I don't like to bog down. I'm an enthusiasm guy. I'm a visionary guy. I'm on the sales end. And Celeste is a great balance to me to go. We used to sit down and go, hey, what do we think is coming on? This is the kind of sales we're projecting. And she would go, this is what I need to do for back office for you. I know Darrin and his team's going to go deliver this. And guess what? You're only as good as your ops, right? You can win all the sales in the world. If you can't go deliver on what you promise, you'll be out of business really quick. And,
we know that feeling.
Right. And guess what? You're going to have those things as you go through the growth curve, and you're going to have those, especially if you're pushing the envelope. And we're big on serve mentality. We teach everybody the first time, and half of our current staff today worked for us previously. So to me, that was a testament of, wow, you must have enjoyed working for us, even though it was interesting times those days. And that there were times we didn't think the company was going to stay in business, and not because of any financial issues. It was just such a new industry. The IRS still hadn't written all the rules on it. Various states haven't. Celeste was instrumental. She was the chairman of the state licensing board and an integral part of our national association. So a lot of hard work, a lot of taking chances, and reinvesting in the company, and a lot of enthusiasm. I'm big on, you better believe in what you do. So owning a business is hard work. If you do not like what you do, if you think you're owning your company just to make money, it is going to fail. Okay, because as soon as you start making money, then you're bored? It's not about that. You better have tremendous enthusiasm and belief in what you do and enjoy what you do, because there's going to be times you have to do a lot of hard work that is not fun, and it's not about money, and you had to give up time to go do that.
That's a really interesting point there, Darrin, and that's something, I think that's something that most entrepreneurs struggle with, right? Is there are times, we've had the good fortune where I've been able to bring in people around me to do certain tasks because, I know as an entrepreneur, I'm not satisfied or happy if I'm not doing the parts of the job that I love. If I get bogged down, there's parts of the job I'm really good at, but I can't stand it. And if I get bogged down in that for months on end or quarters on end because there's, some sort of challenge that has to be solved, then one, I've probably not hired the right people for those jobs. And that doesn't end well, as some people will tell you I like to say. That's a little bit of a coaching pep talk sometimes is, this keeps going, it won't end well. Not for me. It's just not going to end well for you. But, it's all a matter of perspective. But that passion and getting the business to a place, because you kind of honed in on this a little bit too when you talk about your partner having an opposite skill set. If you're bogged down in those things and you're not passionate about what you're doing and you're not focused on what one of my shareholders from back in the days when we were private used to say to me, what's your fastball, right? If you're not honed in on what's your fastball and you're not using your fastball each and every time, you may be forced to throw the off-speed stuff here and there, but there's very few guys that end up in the Hall of Fame because they had a great curveball, right? The guys who could move that fastball around the plate are the guys who end up in the Hall of Fame as pitchers, right? And if you're not going to that when you need it, it's going to be a long road. I think that's
and you have to develop people. Probably the thing that I'm most proud about, and it's not selling the company and having that, even though, I mean, I grew up very, low middle class. My father was a steel worker. We never really had any money, but we had a blast. I had a great family life. But so getting that payday was great. But now coming back full circle and seeing what happened to, so we were just in our 20s and 30s. I was 33 years old when we sold in 97, in my early to mid 30s. Seeing what where those employees ended up in life after we sold is I'm very proud of that. Numerous people ended up being vice presidents of larger companies. Okay. Awesome. And just things and I didn't realize, now that I'm 56, back then we had employees working for us that were 40, 45 or 50. And then we go back and I'm like, well, Celeste, we should call so-and-so. And they're like, well, they're fully retired now. And I'm like, well, what's so-and-so doing? And they're like, well, they're VP of this company over in California now. I go, VP, great. I remember when we hired that person for $12 an hour as an entry level position in 91. So you have to have a passion too for wanting to develop people if you want to have a high growth company.
Well, that's a huge that I like, and Susanna sees it more on a day-to-day basis, but for me, the last 3 or 4 years, that's probably what gets me out of bed more than anything else. It's like, in fact, we have what we call our niche and our purpose. The niche is what we do. Our purpose is why we do it as part of our EOS system. And I remember when we were, as a team, we were trying to come up with that. And I was kind of letting the team work and do their things and saying that. And there was a lot of things that were being said and they weren't really resonating with me. And our facilitator just kept looking at me. And I said, why do you keep looking at me? And he said, well, this, which by the way, he had counseled me to let other people do their work, right? Which is hard sometimes when you're the boss. You feel compelled, like if it's not working right, like to just say, well, just do this, right? When it works. But he kept looking at me and I said, why do you keep doing that? And he said, well, this usually comes from the founder. And I said, if you want to know why I do it, it's to, I believe that, we should give people an opportunity to be the best version of themselves that they can be and do things that they might not have otherwise accomplished on their own. And I'm a big believer in taking people from outside the business or taking people who Absolutely. Are great people and need a chance, right? I love a good story about redemption and people who have, high ceiling, but need an opportunity and some time to figure things out. One of them is with us here on the call. She had an awesome career in broadcasting, a very accomplished career. She went to an okay school. I mean, it was I think she said it was the number one school for journalism in the world. But so it was an okay school. But she didn't have the experience in marketing, and with some great mentoring from a firm we hired to do it, and an incredibly high ceiling, she's done an incredible job with our marketing and communications. I mean, beyond my wildest dreams, because it's been a total learning experience for me too. But
to me, I don't care about somebody's prior experience, because also, like, even us hired, we've been out of the PEO business for 15 years that we were both retired, come back in. And so he goes, well, I have 20 years experience. And I go, well, is that really 1 year's experience 20 times? Do you have a passion for learning? Okay. Do you have a serve mentality? If you have those things, I want you part of the team because we can help develop you. And even, right now, to be an employer is so dynamically different than it was in the 80s and 90s.
It's different than it was 2 years ago.
Exactly. Just 2 years ago. And a lot of employers have not caught up to that. we just had lunch with one of our clients yesterday here local that has 130 employees, a 55-year-old company that's been in business forever, going through a cultural shift of going, we can't keep running it like we did in the 80s and 90s. And I go, labor has changed. And you're right, Mark, just in 2 years because of everything with COVID. Okay, it even shifted my focus a little bit because there was so much additional things we could do for our clients because of PPP loans and ERC credits and WOTC tax credits and so many other things that a lot of clients needed just to survive, to make it through this time. It was just a whole nother skill set that needed to be learned. But if you don't believe in developing people, if you think it's all about you, it's me, and all that, which I have never been. I want to give my team as much credit. As you see, I'm really not out there very much. I'm not big on LinkedIn and a lot of those things because it's not about me. It's about our customers and it's about the team I'm trying to develop. And that's what I've always tried to push. And I'm very proud. One of our top payroll processors literally has been with us since 91 through the whole time of selling the company, stayed in the industry. We opened back up. He said, can I come back to work for you guys? Absolutely. And it's funny. I was telling Mark, before this call about an old customer of ours with 250 employees that just reached out to us. And I literally walked to that gentleman and I said, you remember doing payroll for them? I go, yeah. I go, they just emailed. I go, why don't you call them and say hello? Because it's still the same owners of that company. So it's amazing how that has all come full circle.
So, Darrin, there's one thing we ask every guest, and I think it's interesting to hear the answers to this question. And it's the one thing that I know we all, as entrepreneurs, if you've been doing it for a couple decades, like I have, or you even longer. So, one thing I think we owe each other is good advice. And the one thing that we can save each other is time, right? I know I can save people a lot of time because I watch them make mistakes that I made for years and years and years and years. And you learn the shortcuts the hard way sometimes, right? So what's one thing you would tell, a 25-year younger Darrin who was launching into this adventure all over again? What's one thing you would tell that younger version of yourself that you would do differently or better, or if you had that do-over, what would you do?
I don't know if he would listen to me.
I hear that a lot. I might have said that myself.
Probably should be him listening more, but honestly, if I really think about it, learn how to say no. Learn how to say no more often. I'd read a comment about Steve Jobs talking about why he has such great focus. And he says, because I know how to say no 1,000 times. And he goes, there are so many things you can do as a CEO that take up your time. And saying no it's truly about focus. And it enables you to literally go, no, I can't do that because I really want to stay focused on these things. And when I look back of things that maybe distracted me, even on a great growth path that we had, it was because maybe, and people are uncomfortable saying no. It's not an easy thing to do, especially when you're a younger entrepreneur. As we get bigger, companies like you and I have, Mark, we're more insulated and there's other people and there's certain things. But when you're a young entrepreneur, it's just starting out, you don't want to upset anybody, but focus, which is what it takes to be successful, part of that is about saying no and setting certain boundaries. So, to me, that's probably one of the
great advice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really strong advice. It's advice I needed to hear today. So thank you. It's something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, I think it's like a lot of things, it kind of ebbs and flows, right? There's times when you're disciplined and focused and you're in the zone. And there's times where you get distracted chasing the shiny penny or chasing the new idea, whatever, right? And you're tripping over dollars to pick up nickels or doing whatever, or going into bad deals that end up being, a total distraction because of the workload. And I think that's something with especially in our MSP channel, where there's a lot of small and mid-sized businesses. I think they probably need to hear that because not every client is the right client, right? And
exactly.
We see that in the cybersecurity business, and I hear things that escalate up or percolate to the top of the list, and I'll say, well, why are we doing business with that person if they're taking such risky behaviors? They probably shouldn't be our client, because my job is risk mitigation, right? That's one of the number one things as a steward of the shareholders' money, is to make sure we don't take unnecessary risk, and the senior leadership team has to share in that responsibility, right? So saying no is a critical element. And thank you, I needed to hear that.
And it takes discipline. I mean,
a lot.
I can think of a deal just a year ago I should have said no to, but I'm like, I'm smarter, I'm older, I can handle this, but truly kind of the back of my mind is like, let's just say no and pass on.
Well, the opportunity cost is always there too, right? And that's what, I face that dilemma probably once a week, and we're in a very significant crossroads right now where there's two paths, right? And I know that I can only go down one, because the opportunity cost of trying to pursue both could create such a distraction that it could swamp your business, right? And everybody has to look at that. And that starts with, how do you value your own time, right? How do you value the time of others? And by the way, if you don't value your own time highly enough, nobody will value your time.
Exactly.
They just won't respect your time, right? So those are all disciplines.
I wouldn't want to be, so when you're evaluating those opportunity costs, my age-old phrase on that is, and I don't know who to give credit to it. Maybe I saw it in a movie, but I go, pioneers have arrows in their back. So guess what? I don't want to be the first one over the wall. I don't want to be a pioneer. I'll be number 2, okay, because I'll probably get hit less time. I want to be early, but I don't want to be that initial pioneer.
I consider us a close follower. That's I don't want to be on. There's a fine line between the bleeding edge and the leading edge, and yes. I sort of want to stay on the leading edge. And with us, and much like you, as I've known you over the years, it's follow your customers, right? If everything starts with the customer, I don't want to go create a solution for a problem that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
I want
customers
to create,
will tell you everything.
Customers tell you what they need, and you've done it by expanding the line card of what you guys offer. And I know for us, not just from a cost perspective, but again, the complexity that every HR decision we make, we work with your team. It allows us to keep our team light and nimble and focus on what we're good at, which for our customers is the best possible thing, right? Because if you subscribe to a lean philosophy, you're not adding cost where you're not adding value. We're keeping our costs low and our value high, because it allows us to keep the people focused on our customers and on what we do best. You focusing on your customer, which is me, allows me to enable our organization to focus on our customers. And if you're not focused on that and you're adding cost where there's no value, you're adding opportunities for error, you're minimizing your service capabilities, and those are just bad things all around. So the whole concept to me has always made sense. You nailed it. You nailed it. It makes us better as an organization. So thank you for both the service that you guys provide. How can people get in touch with you guys if they are interested in your business, Darrin? It would be a shame of me not to get you a plug here. How can they get in touch with you guys? They
can go to our website, www.ceopeo.com, and just shoot us an email through there, or call us on our number 941-907-4520. We're in all 48 states, the continental U.S., and considering expanding even outside of that. So, cool. And that's going to happen with our clients as we grow. But we've kind of forced you to expand outside the continental part. That was an interesting one down there. So I'm sure Susanna is a wizard with graphics and can put some of that stuff up on the screen here. So thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your time and your advice. And I'm going to take some of your advice and say no a couple times today, which is really gonna make some folks happy. So thank you for your guys' business, and thank you for the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, thank you, Darrin. Saying no is quite a discipline. For those of you listening, thank you so much. If you have feedback or questions about today's podcast, please contact us at podcast@highwirenetworks.com or leave a comment And one thing you can say yes to is our next episode. So make sure you stay tuned for The Working CEO. Until next time, I'm Susanna Song.
And I'm Mark Porter.
I'm Darrin Fedder.
And this is The Working CEO. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of The Working CEO. Remember, whether your collar is blue or white, roll up your sleeves and let's get real. The Working CEO is made possible by Highwire Networks, a leading global provider of technical, professional, electrical, and managed cybersecurity services, serving businesses in more than 180 countries. To learn more, visit highwirenetworks.com.